Chapter 27, Measure of Power. One moment, Valen stood across the arena. The next, he seemed to vanish into thin air. Of course, he hadn't actually disappeared. He was just moving with such blistering speed that it tricked the untrained eye. If not for the eerie clarity of dusk vision, Kai wouldn't have seen anything either. Even then, all he caught was a blur slicing through the air. In less than a second, Valen closed the distance and launched a devastating punch. Yet, somehow, Ceres reacted in time, her body twisting just enough to avoid a direct hit. But she wasn't fast enough. The blow still clipped her shoulder, spinning her violently off balance. Without hesitation, Valen vanished again. His strategy was simple. Strike fast, then vanish, overwhelm the enemy before they could react. He reappeared behind Ceres, preparing to end it with a powerful strike. Just as she braced herself to retaliate in the wrong direction, thinking he was still in front of her, Valen smirked. Perfect. But then she moved. At the last second, Ceres slammed her elbow backward, aiming directly at where his head now was. Valen's eyes widened. It had all been a setup, but he had no time to counter. Even with all his speed, he couldn't break free from momentum. The elbow hurtled toward him like an inevitable fate. Yet somehow, impossibly, he dodged it by a hair's breadth. Still, he didn't relent. He twisted, swept her legs, and sent her toppling to the ground. But before she could hit the mat hard, he reached out, grabbed her uniform, and slowed her fall, ensuring she landed without injury. Ceres blinked up at him from the ground, stunned. The whole exchange had lasted barely 2 seconds. Elsewhere, Kai opened his eyes in disbelief. So that's what an ascendant looks like in action? That's just unfair. Sleepers weren't supposed to be this powerful. The abilities granted by the Echo hadn't fully matured yet. But Valen, he was a legacy. Who knew how many soul crystals had been sacrificed to empower him before he even enrolled? Back in the arena, the combat instructor gave a short nod of approval. Ceres rose without a word. Around them, the rest of the sleepers watched with wide eyes, murmuring quietly. Valen's skill had left a mark on them all, but Valen himself didn't seem pleased. He glanced at Ceres with a strange look, not triumphant, but troubled. Only a few truly understood why. Kai, watching through the eyes of his shadow, had noticed too. Ceres hadn't used her ability during that fight. In fact, she hadn't used it all day. No one even knew what her Echo gift was. And yet Valen, even with all his speed and strength, had barely won. She's a monster, Kai whispered, a chill running through him. Even the shadow beside him seemed to nod in agreement. Later, after the class ended and most of the trainees had shuffled off to the showers, Kai sent his shadow creeping into the changing rooms. He wasn't being a creep. He simply wanted to observe in case Valen mentioned anything about his ability. Sure enough, Valen was quickly surrounded by a swarm of admirers. Man, you were unreal. That speed. That has to be some overpowered Echo. Did you see how that Ceres chick got wrecked? Who needs bloodlines when you've got fists like that? Valen's face darkened. The admiration didn't seem to sit well with him. Then someone spoke up. A boy from a prestigious family like Valen. What's the problem, Valen? You upset that you beat some random girl? Valen turned slowly, his expression icy. You should know better. The other boy raised an eyebrow. Why? She's just a nobody, isn't she? Valen's eyes narrowed. You don't know who she is? Kai, listening from afar, leaned forward eagerly. Valen opened his mouth, hesitated, then said, She's Ceres, daughter of the Emberlight line. Silence. The arrogant boy paled instantly. Valen continued, You've heard of her grandfather, the one they called the Flamebearer, the first to defeat the second nightmare. And her mother, he added, was known as the Bladed Star. Even Kai knew those names. Legends. Heroes who had changed the course of history. If Valen was right, Ceres wasn't just a noble. She was descended from myth. No wonder Valen had called her lady. He might as well have bowed. But then came the twist. The other boy, still pale, asked in a whisper, Then why is she here? Why is she alone? Valen looked away, voice low. Because they're all gone. The Emberlight bloodline was wiped out. He glanced back with a haunted expression. She's the only one left. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Kai slipped into the now empty arena. He stepped onto the training mat, standing where the earlier duels had taken place. He imagined Ceres holding her ground, and Valen moving like lightning. "They're freaks," he muttered bitterly. He looked down at his own shadow. "You agree." The shadow puffed its chest and crossed its arms dramatically, but Kai wasn't convinced. "No need to pretend. I get it. Even royalty hadn't been spared. Even legends had fallen." He sighed and walked toward the training machine. He clenched his fist and struck with all his might. The screen flashed. 9. Kai groaned. "I deserved at least a 10. He hit it again. No change. Frustrated, he stomped in a circle, fuming. "How's this fair? I can't change my size. My bones are light. I'll never hit as hard as them." Fueled by rage, he punched the machine again, hard, and something strange happened. His shadow moved. Without his command, it slithered up his arm and wrapped around his fist like an inky glove. He struck. The machine trembled. Kai gasped, cradling his aching hand. Then the number appeared. 10. He stared, stunned. Then slowly, a grin spread across his face. "So that's what you do, huh?" He looked at the shadow wrapped around his fist. "Let's see how far we can go."